that you guys are looking at 100 premium, which is the sequel version, which is great.
Mhm.
You don't need configurator. You don't need multi-currency. You'd like the material planner piece of it, component exception manager. But even with some of the notes that Brian sent, I had a few other questions
Sure.
for what you're doing. It looks like you want to do progress payments. Is that based on because the length of your jobs, I assume? Because
Yeah.
they're
So
what, 5 months to a year? Is that what
yeah,
I remember?
I would say on average, a sizable project, and when I say sizable, it's probably anywhere between 350,000 to 550,000. Those type of jobs take, on average, about 7 months from start to completion. We bill per terms of the purchase order. So it's not necessarily a progress payment based on cost incurred. It's really to kick off the project, we either bill 40% or 50%. At design release, there could possibly be another portion that gets billed, and then at FAT, where that's the testing at our site, we will bill another 30 to 40%. And then once we deliver and install, we bill the remaining 10%.
Okay, so it's basically milestone payments versus
Yeah.
progress payments.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. So you can set those, with the way the product works, it really kind of depends on how you want to do it. But what some people will do is they'll put the beginning steps of the job as your progress payments, and
Mhm.
then you can release those as you hit those milestones.
Okay.
Versus manually trying to track it. When you get a PO, is it typically for one machine, or are there multiple machines that they buy?
Yeah, it's either one or
Okay.
it's a system of two machines. So the way we look at it is if it's for one machine, we consider that one job or one project. If it's for two machines, we track each of those projects separately, and but they fall under the same PO.
Okay. Because within Sage, the way that you could do it is you'd have a line, two different lines on your sales order for that client, and
Mm.
each of those different line items on the sales order can have a different job associated with it.
Yeah, that's great.
So that would work well for that. Currently, it says you guys are using Inflow. What is Inflow?
It's basically our inventory management system, and I use that loosely. It houses all of our POs and all of our sales orders, but it's not integrated with Sage 50. So for us to close our books on any given month, we do a substantial amount of manual type calculations outside, and then bring the results into Sage via general journals.
Okay. So that you're planning on going away when you go to Sage 100.
Yeah, Sage 100, I would love for it to house all the purchase orders, all the sales orders,
Yep.
and while we will still do things outside of the system until we get 100% comfortable with the results we're seeing, but moving that in that direction.
Okay. Perfect. There's a note here about a sequence ID.
Sequence ID.
All PM parts have a sequence ID, so it will tell you what assembly.
Oh, okay. So I gave you that demo data is broken down into commercial parts, which obviously we buy from electrical and mechanical vendors, and then we do in-house parts manufacturing off of our engineered drawings, and those I gave you a small portion of those as well, and those are all they all have that sequence of a 4-digit job number. Dash 2 digits, and then another 3 digits following that. So that's the sequence of our actual part numbers.
So the ones that you guys make, which I'd term like a subassembly. Are those unique to this job, or are they common?
Some are common and some are unique.
Okay.
So the ones that are very common, where machines need high volume, we do make those to stock, or we do outside purchases where we supply the drawing to somebody and then they'll do it for us. Or we can just do it ourselves when time permits. And then the rest of the parts, which are specific to the ongoing project, they get released by assembly via the engineers. Then they go to a job manager who approves it. It hits the shop floor, and then those costs should be put onto those jobs without essentially nothing nothing going to stock inventory.
Okay. And the purchased ones are common as well as unique?
Yeah, there's a mix.
Okay. You'll just have some decisions to make on the unique ones if you want to track them in inventory or not.
Right. Yeah, that.
You can do it either way, obviously.
What's that?
I said you can do it either way,
Yeah.
and you can do it either way based on that one particular part.
Yeah,
So,
I'm still battling, trying to figure out what the best approach is, because the specific parts on every machine, it can be pretty high volume. And if we're not actually stocking it, does it really make sense to go through that trouble of basically creating an inventory item for it? Still working through that in my mind as to what makes sense.
yeah. And that, I mean, there's pros and cons to both of it, obviously.
Yeah.
So. And then based on the bottom of that sheet, it looks like you've got some labor requirements with some hours and rates for the different types of labor that are needed.
Yep. So we receive PO, we assign an engineer to. They're the first to start incurring time. Once drawings get released via approved BOM, that hits the shop floor. The manufacturing is a team in essentially two warehouse or two manufacturing facilities where they pull raw material, and then they begin to CNC or mill that material into parts. We have a purchase order team. They start to buy the commercial parts. Once we have parts that can build the assemblies, we shift that to the assembly team. So it's really engineer time, production time, move to the assemblers, and then once the assembling is done, we have electrical engineers that do the wire setups, connections, and then test the running.
Okay. One of the things that you can do in operations management, and this is just an FYI, is you can set up the parts by the process step to when the part's needed. So if there's parts that aren't needed until the mechanical assembly, you can set up the parts on that particular step. And one of the benefits of doing it, breaking it down by step, is that you can purchase it in time for that particular step to start versus at the beginning of the job. So especially with your 7-month window for when, how long the job takes, you may want to consider breaking it down into step. Otherwise, you can put all the parts that are needed on the very first step and just buy them in time for that. Depends on how you want it to work.
That's typically what we do. That they like to have all the commercial parts purchased pretty much like 2 weeks into the design phase, sitting with the design engineers, just so there's no surprises later on. So that's typically what we're doing.
Okay. Awesome. And then you guys do service trips to maintain the customer machines as well, which there's a field service and dispatch module that can be added on to operations management that will literally take what you shipped and have it available to do service work on then after the fact. And you can put in service agreements that have those preventative maintenance cycles built into it.
So essentially, whatever we've tracked in the local system, the service team would essentially have like an iPad or something that can look at everything that was included on that machine that they're going to service.
Yep. I mean, it depends on what information they want, but there's a technician dashboard that they could use to report labor and materials that were needed to service that particular equipment. And give me 1 second, I'm pulling it up because I believe, if I remember correctly, you can get into the equipment asset file directly within it. Part of it's going to depend on how you have it set up, because you can track every nut and bolt that goes into the system, or you can track individual products or individual pieces of it, and then you'd be able to see that information out there. So it depends on what you choose to track, as to what they're going to be able to see.
Okay. So really, it's designed for them to efficiently just track their costs while they're out on service, right?
And see, I mean, literally you can, let me pull it up here quick. You can see within it the information about what was done previously on previous service visits. You can see, you can track all your costs, obviously, associated with a service visit, but you can also see information about the equipment itself.
Okay.
So you can see all of it. The whole point is so that they have the information they need.
Makes sense. Yeah, right now, we send a couple service technicians out to handle. So there are two types of service. Each machine that gets installed has a full 1-year warranty, so we send guys out for servicing the warranty for a year. And then there's aftermarket service, where it's just upkeep of the fleet after the 1-year period.
Yep. And you can set up the service contract to cover you can set up the warranty within so that when you invoice the machine, it automatically puts the warranty into that item. So that machine, the day you invoice it, the warranty starts, and that is that can automatically be calculated. And if it's some places, they'll extend it by 2 weeks or something like that, because you have the option of saying it's 53 weeks or 54 weeks is the warranty, to account for the shipping. Up to you. But then once that's in there, that is being tracked within the equipment asset file for this item's has this warranty on it. You can also create a service agreement associated with that item that says a year from now, we want to do a service visit for them for the year warranty. That's part of that. You can also then set up rates within the service agreement if you negotiate some specific rate for some piece of equipment that they have. And you can then track the PMs associated with those. So if you want to add extended service to any of it, to your mix of the service that you offer, you can do extended service for them and track all that information within the field service module. And then it has the programs to automatically create the service tickets over the time. There's a program called PM maintenance or PM generation. And it'll go through and it'll create any kind of PMs that you have out there that are going to be needed based on the time frame that you're looking. So it's like, if I want to see everything for the next 2 months by PMs, I can run that program. It'll automatically create the service ticket, and then I can begin to schedule it with the client and with the technician for who's going to be going out there, the specifics for when they're going to be scheduled for it.
Okay. Yeah, we do a lot of manual tracking right now with regards to setting the service trips up, how they're reporting costs and expenses while out on service. Then when the physical documents come back, we have somebody enter them into Excel. Then somebody needs to review it. So this is definitely something I'm interested in, as maybe like phase two after the accounting function gets rolling with in inventory management.
Yep.
And Vince, I just sent you the PDF on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so that'll easily dovetail in what you're talking about for this, for the rest of this as well.
Okay.
And I assume based on the types of machines you guys make, most of them are buy to order, maybe?
Make
Okay.
make to the order, yes.
Okay. Okay. Anything else you can think of that I need to know? Or do you have any questions?
So with the data that I gave you, the one thing that becomes very important for us to be able to do and have to be able to do it efficiently is when we pull purchase parts that ended up hitting our stock upon receiving it, that when it gets applied to the job, I need to be able to move it to WIP inventory. Okay. I sometimes I say these things in like accounting terms, and I don't know if people listening understand like exactly what that means, but
and their eyes glaze over.
yeah. So I just try and like explain it really like basic, but it's essentially you probably understand this, but it's moving it from balance sheet account to balance sheet account. And then it won't flush through the cost of goods sold until the entire machine is complete.
Right, and you set up within the work ticket class, which is the type of work that you're performing. You set up within that how you want to recognize your costs throughout the process. So you can recognize some of them, all of them, none of them.
Okay.
So it's up to you guys and how that's set up of how you recognize the costs as you receive your revenue.
Okay.
Or as you invoice the revenue.
And so that's one element. I think that's primary. And then two, let's see, 80% of the jobs at any given point are completed contract. So that would fall under the situation I just explained. And then there's 20% that are percentage of completion. So I assume that the revenue recognition associated with those can be calculated via the operations management module.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. And it depends on how you want to do it.
Okay.
You can have within that work ticket class, you can have it set up to automatically calculate it. But what it's going to automatically calculate is your percentage of completion based on your budgets.
Right.
So if your budget isn't accurate, your percentage of completion is not going to be accurate.
Yep, makes sense.
So what a lot of people do is they'll calculate it manually. They'll go, okay, we're about 40% done, so we're going to do a 40% one right now, and decide what percentage they want to recognize.
Okay. But
you can do it either way.
Okay, so but the budget gets input into the system, and it will calculate revenue off of that.
Yes.
Okay.
Based on your completion, your time, basically based on the labor that you've entered into the system compared to your budget.
Right. Okay. Yep.
And that's in that work ticket class. So you can have multiple different work ticket classes set up for the different types of work you want to do. So you can have one that's set up for percentage complete, one that's set up for manual, one that's set up for service, whatever. You can have all the different ones set up differently.
Okay.
Is there anything else, any other questions that you can think of?
Nope. I think that's it.
Okay. Then I will try to quick, get some of these parts set up and put them into the system so you can see how it would work.
Yeah, that would be excellent.
And then we can go through it.
Yeah, I'm absolutely fine with that. As I've told Brian, this is like my prime. Besides closing the financials every month, and now moving into the director of finance role, I will be doing payroll, so that'll be a little time consuming. I know we use ADP, but there are a lot of things that actually are happening nowadays going on in the background that have to be paid attention to. But other than really those two things, this is my primary focus. So at any point, I can be made available.
Okay. Just one other thing for you, since you mentioned payroll, one of the things that you can do as well, if you want to, is within operations management, you can set it up to have them clock in and clock out for the day above and beyond clocking in and clocking out for the job.
Right. So we outsource to ADP right now. So
Okay.
we actually use their scanning system.
Okay.
And it was basically a nightmare to implement and get to get to the point where we're at now with it. So we won't be changing anything related to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just wanted to mention it
Sure.
as another option.
Absolutely.
Stacy, and then also Vince is looking at, was it a October 1 go live, Vince?
Yes, that would be fantastic.
Okay. Because your role, you're going to be moving into that director of finance role on that date, right?
No, my role starts on 7/1.
Okay.
But the go live date of 10/1 would be great because starting in the middle of October and near the end, I have to dedicate a significant amount of time to our auditors.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome. One of the things that I didn't talk about, you're down in the Chicago area, right?
Yes.
Okay. We're based out of Brookfield,
Oh, okay.
basically Milwaukee. So
Yeah.
we're just up the road from you guys. So that'll be convenient as well.
Yep.
If anybody needs to come on site, but a lot of this stuff is typically done just through meetings like this. So.
Yep. The company, I would have to say, especially the accounting function, we run rather lean. So I'm pretty much the direct contact for everything.
Okay.
So getting a hold of somebody that can make decisions or answer questions, that comes to me. So very accessible.
Awesome. And we've got the capacity to be able to get you guys up and going by the 1st, assuming that we make, readily make a decision and start working on it, and that you guys have the bandwidth to support doing it.
Yep.
So
that's great.
It shouldn't be an issue.
So yeah, I would really love to see the functionality with the demo data,
Mhm.
and that will give me, I think, a really clear picture to compare it against the presentations that Brian was showing me, and then we can move forward with a decision.
Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Great.
My first available day, tomorrow is just slammed, would be Monday.
Okay.
And Monday is wide open for me. Stacy, I don't know if that gives you enough time to prep for it.
Probably not. But
Yeah, I understand that when you throw data to somebody, I mean, it's not just flip the switch.
Right.
I tried to give you just a small sample size of the data, but what you're actually looking at there is probably 75% of a smaller type job that we just completed. If we're able to successfully see how everything moves with that set of data, I can essentially make everything else work.
Okay.
But I understand that it's very difficult to be ready by 48 hours or 24 hours of a working period to have that ready. So whatever works for you, you can just let me know. You don't have to decide right now or pin it. Everyone has a life and has things to juggle. We would actually like to have engagements signed by latest date of the 1st. So I think there's enough time there over the next 13 days to figure that out.
Yeah.
Because I feel like we've moved along pretty fast, Brian.
We have.
I've been pretty committed to it. We've already talked about a bunch of different things. So
Right.
whatever you guys decide, just let me know.
sounds good. I mean, we can for sure do it next week. It's just probably not Monday.
Okay, great.
So I'll work on getting it all put together, and we'll catch up, Ryan, to find out what your availability is, because I'm pretty open next week, the whole week.
So am I, with the
So.
exception of Thursday. My calendar has not filled up yet.
Okay. Well, let me put a little time into this, see how far I can get, and we'll set a time, if nothing else, by Monday morning.
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
Cool.
great.
All right. Thank you both.
All right.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Have a nice day.
Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.